and there's county beef organizations around and corn and soybeans, but these have been changing times. And just to let you know now, and I'm announcing it for the first time here publicly, that we will not be having our county pork producer banquet this year.
I was going to ask you about that because I love that banquet.
I know you've been very faithful of coming for a lot of years, and Dwayne Murley's been there. And
you bet. Well, we like pork.
Oh, I know it. And but
Murley and I have something in common. We can't pass up a great free meal.
Yeah, I know it. But under these times that we are living in, and it's
the COVID thing.
Yeah, and if your listeners are watching this on your live stream, I just took my mask off just because it's a little bit easier, and I know
That's
what the
right.
rules and requirements are, and it's this is part of the times that we're living in. But 1 year ago, we had the county pork banquet on a Monday night, and then the next day, the governor made the announcements about the shutdowns.
Yeah.
And so we know this year that we are going to do things a little bit differently. We do a lot of things at the county level for the community.
Yeah.
And you well know, we only did one pork producer grilling all last summer.
That's wild.
And that was at the county fair.
Because you used to do, you and your grill with those pork burgers were everywhere.
Oh, we would do.
You did it a couple of times out in the parking lot of the radio station.
Yep. Radio station right across the street at Community Health Center. And we would average about 10 a year on the grillings. And last year we did one. And that was at the county fair, which to your listeners, and I know this goes back 6 months, but the county fair was canceled last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just 2 days prior to all the kids' exhibits coming in.
It's been a hard time, boy.
But what did happen, I know with the pork show, and I can speak to that, there was a lot other livestock shows that the families and those that are the main supporters said, hey, we still have to offer something up for these kids.
Yeah.
And so we had our normal judge come in that our county pork producer lines up for the pork show. It was not a 4-H show because that was canceled, but all the kids and their families that have put a lot of time and effort into that, and literally 48 hours prior to bringing the pigs in or the other livestock at the fair, they brought them in one morning, they had the show, and they took them home that night or the next morning. So anyway, we're not going to have the county pork banquet this year with concerns of the COVID, and we're going to do some things a little bit differently, but we're still there to support the kids. Those that are seniors in high school, we provide a pork scholarship for if they apply for that.
Right.
If they're pork producer members and they show pigs at the fair and they're seniors in high school, we like to support those. So we're still going to be doing some of those things that are important.
Well, that's great news, and hopefully things will improve this year with the vaccination coming out. That's what we all hope for.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And as I'm talking a little bit about some of those local things, and it's been quite a while that you and I have gotten together to chat, but you should have, as we've talked before, people from Iowa State come in here, our local extension folks here that you've had in this station before, because
Linda Klein's been great.
Yep. There's a lot of the delivery of those services or meetings. This is the time of the year when farmers have to do certifications and trainings and ongoing education. That a lot of those are being held virtual now, like a lot of organizations have been doing.
Sure.
Iowa Farm Bureau, Iowa Corn Growers, American Farm Bureau all had virtual meeting events. But as farmers, we also have some face-to-face meetings where we have to do a 2 or 3 hour in-session class training for the certifications. And those are going to be socially distanced. And instead of having maybe 50 to 100 people at a meeting, you're going to have 15 to 30. And it's all pre-registration, and farmers out there know we get a lot of good information from the county extension offices in your counties for that services.
I'm so glad I got to do this radio show for a couple of reasons. First of all, the extension service, I didn't realize how valuable it was and how much ground they covered, but it's unbelievable. And then don't be modest here, I'm glad I got to talk a lot with you about pork production, because I learned a lot about an important part of our economy. I'm thinking pork production. Yeah, bring it on. Sausage links, pork burgers, pork roast, bring it. I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And certainly Bill Horan, who opened my eyes and ears to the international aspect of agriculture.
Yes.
And I got to get to this, and I know you want talk the local events that the pork producers are involved in, will be involved in, and I'm 100% for that. But I'm excited to find out that China has decided it needs to import more meat. Now, they said meat, but I'm sure they mean pork, don't they?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of numbers out there, and I've cautioned myself on this before, as you and I talk about numbers to pork exports, because getting numbers over the radio is sometimes difficult to follow. But, we've talked, especially last year, and I know when I was a pork producer president, and even the year after I was president, I had a lot of media contacts come to me about the trade deals. And I said at that time, we have to be understanding that these things take time to evolve. And I will tell your listeners that we have sold this past year, the year 2020, more pork and pork cuts of live pork or fresh pork, processed pork to China and Japan and Mexico than we ever have sold before. We broke all types of records. And not only that, I came in here today looking at a little information just a couple days ago. Canada, to the north of us, has also sold China more pork than they have ever sold before. And China is ferociously buying the pork. Your listeners and you and I have talked, we've all heard about African swine fever.
Oh, yeah.
In China of 3 years ago. As actually it was the 6 months after I was in China, when I know you mentioned earlier today talking to Bill Horn about Governor Branstad or Ambassador Branstad. And he had the Iowa delegation to the embassy, which I was part of that delegation with Governor Reynolds and the other ag groups that we were meeting our contacts there in China. But 6 months later, they had African swine fever. And the first thing it did for our Iowa commodity organizations is it really shut down travel opportunities for us to get over there, work on not only the negotiations that the trade representatives really do, but to work on the relationships. But their swine herd was cut almost 50% in China at the greatest cutback level. Wow. But right now, Mike and your listeners out there, China is already back to 90%, maybe a little bit more than 90% of where they were just 4 years ago. And we said it back when China was depopulating their pig herd. And once again, to your listeners out there, Iowa is the largest pork producer state in the United States, and we have been since the late 1800s.
Excellent.
Okay, in the late 1800s, Iowa was the number one pork producing state in the country, and we still are. But all of the production in the United States is 20% of what China produces.
Sure.
So they're 5 times larger than what we are.
Okay.
Of course, they have a lot of mouths to feed, and pork is their protein of choice. But they are industrializing their pork business with more technology, which means buildings, and the innovations that we use in modern pork production here in the United States.
You told me something interesting a year or two ago, that China stacks their pigs. In other words, they build like 4-story hog confinements, which is, I wish I could see that sometime.
Yes. I know that Bill Northey had some really impressive video and screenshot pictures of those 3, 4, 5. Actually, one of them was 8 stories high.
8 stories.
8 stories high.
Wow.
And it was on the side of a mountain. So they did not have a lot of land space for, as we would call the footprint, to spread out like a big Walmart or Walmart parking lot. They didn't have that amount of footprint. So they did what we might do here in Fort Dodge. You go on the side of a hill and you have 25% of the size of the footprint, but you build it up.
Yeah.
And
but wouldn't that be all kinds of feeding and manure management problems that would be unacceptable?
Well, obviously, if there's a problem, you're going to try to find a solution.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what they have done. Because
what was their solution?
Their solution was obviously to build higher, which they had to deal with the construction aspects of that. But as pig farmers, we always talk about the biosecurity. How biosecure is it going to be from a health perspective of the pigs?
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yep.
Manure management problems,
so
watering, feeding.
They figured it out. And
they did.
Oh, yeah, they figured that out. And you knew they would, because money is not a concern when they're going to start looking at how they're going to feed their people. But as we're talking about this, the last time you and I have talked, we've signed NAFTA, which means more trade for Mexico and Canada and the United States. That USMCA that is commonly known as now, which was a good deal on a lot of different aspects. But that China deal and Vietnam and Japan was always our number one dollar value of export sales. But now Japan is number 2 and China is number 1.
Okay.
And they're still growing.
The Japanese had quite a taste for pork as well, for American pork.
They do.
You and I have talked about it before.
Yeah, they do. And they did. Right now, Japan's about 120 million people.
Okay.
And it's an aging population.
Yeah.
But it obviously is surrounded by water.
Yep.
And they were gravitating more towards pork as a protein in the diversity. As I have said for years, back when they had the nuclear problems, when the tsunami came in and wiped out a bunch of the nuclear plants, and they had some problems there as a meltdown.
Sure.
Well, people didn't want to eat fish out of the water anymore.
Sure.
And so that changed the dietary needs. But also, that's what we do trade for. And we do a lot of trade back and forth. And the other thing that's helping right now in the U.S. economy, as we do more exports, is China's back over 90% of their pig herd. They're eating more pork, but they're also buying more corn and more soybeans. And they have more than doubled their soybean utilization this past year. And I would tell your listeners, we just finished our harvest of soybeans in October. And here since October, so really 3 months, China has already imported more soybeans than they did the previous year, because they have such an appetite for the soybean meal, which they buy whole soybeans on cargo ships. They process the meal right down on the ports as they unload the ships. And then that soybean meal goes into poultry and pig feed. Yeah. So that's, it's been a really impressive movement in corn and soybean markets here in the United States in the last 90 days at some record levels that we've not seen for nearly 8 to 10 years.
And I know this about Japan, that seafood was a huge part of their diet. It was almost, the primary thing that they ate along with rice. So they're shifting away from it a little bit. Yes.
Yep. And, there's a lot of reasons to that. Consumer demands, a younger population, what to eat. I have to give credit to U.S. Meat Export Federation has an office there. I've been fortunate to be in that office a couple times. And so we have people that are from the country, in this example, Japan, that are from Japan, but they work for U.S. meat producers and U.S. grain producers and trying to help promote poultry and turkey, beef and pork, dairy, all in those key countries.
Well, Greg Hora gives me grief every now and then, because once when we were talking, I just got up and went to the bathroom and left him in there talking. But you can see I can do that now, don't you, ladies and gentlemen? Because Greg loves his business, and he's able to communicate very well and expound at some length. So Greg Hora will be back right after the news. It's 4:00. You're listening to KVFD Fort Dodge, Iowa. Thank you very much.
If you're a gearhead or not, you'll enjoy the Under the Hood Car Show every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400.